Acting President Yemi Osinbajo directs Inspector General of Police to overhaul activities of Special Anti-Robbery Squad.
Nigerians still reacting to the inability of the National Assembly to reconvene to consider executive communications.
Wife of the President, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, receives World Leadership Award.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our conversation is on breaking the impasse in the National Assembly. Yes, since the formal defection of some senators from the All Progressives Congress, APC, the governing party, to the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, the National Assembly has been embroiled in instability of some sorts.
Now, the defections in the National Assembly, that's to say both for the Senate and the House of Representatives, coupled with the adjournment of the plenary of the two chambers to September, didn't go down well with many key players in the political space. And these include some members of the National Assembly.
The concern expressed by this group of lawmakers may be connected to issues of national importance on the front burner.
And one of the reasons, of course, has to do with what will be the inability of the National Assembly to conclude work and some very important bills pending their action. And these bills, of course, include supplementary appropriation for INEC to enable it conduct the 2019 general elections.
Now, although the leadership planned to meet to decide when to attend to these important issues, the meeting could not hold on the day slated due to the invasion of the National Assembly by security operatives.
And since then, that's to say, since Tuesday last week, there have been all kinds of speculations as to the precise date when the National Assembly would reconvene in plenary. Indeed, at a press conference addressed by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, there was an indication that the House would reconvene Tuesday, that is yesterday, or otherwise today, Wednesday. But the latest, of course, is that there is now no clear date as to when the House or the Senate would reconvene.
And so, as Nigerians remain in suspense as to when the leadership of the National Assembly will eventually call for a reconvening of the National Assembly, many key players are apprehensive on what is likely to happen to Nigeria's democracy.
And while the National Assembly continues on its annual vacation, there is also the issue of the calls for the Senate President to step down from his position on account of the fact that he has now defected from the ruling APC to the PDP, which is said to be in the minority in the Senate. Then the question is, how will the situation be resolved, considering the yin and yang currently in the political space? And how is the nation expected to move forward if the imbroglio, as it were, continues in the National Assembly? This is Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're Africa's largest television network, and that's our principal item for discussion this morning. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Sheung Olagunju. I join my colleague Kingsley to welcome you to the program. And as always, we have our complimentary segments, which will be brought to you this morning, including newspaper review, business, sports, foreign and entertainment news. But right now, the morning news is next, and Chimobi Walter Naji will bring it to us. Hello, Chimobi.
Yes, good morning, Kingsley and Sheung. Here is the morning news. Now, following persistent complaints and reports on the activities of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, that borders on allegations of human rights violation, Acting President Yemi Osinbajo has directed the Inspector General of Police to, with immediate effect, overhaul the management and activities of SARS and ensure that any unit that will emerge from the process will be intelligence-driven and restricted to the prevention and detection of armed robbery and kidnapping, apprehension of offenders linked to the stated offenses, and nothing more. In a release by Laolu Akonde, Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, the acting president also directed the Inspector General of Police to ensure that all operatives in the emerging unit conduct their operations in strict adherence to the rule of law and with due regard to international human rights law and constitutional guaranteed rights of suspects. Now, these operatives, he said, should also bear proper identification anytime they are on duty. And in the meantime, the acting president has directed the National Human Rights Commission to set up a special panel that will conduct an investigation of the alleged unlawful activities of SARS in order to afford members of the general public the opportunity to present their grievances with a view to ensuring a redress. Now, exactly 1 week ago, the National Assembly was barricaded by security agents, eliciting condemnations from within and outside the country. Timothy Yusuf takes a look at the incidents against the backdrop of the immediate response of the government to it, with an insight in similar incidents recorded in the past within the current political dispensation.
Charge for anything that done to the National Assembly.
And it was state-sponsored, because you can remember people like Olisametu, Doyin Okukpe. They came praising what the police did.
Another House of Rep has been denied access to the National House Assembly. That's nothing has happened because the government is not serious.
The National Assembly is the people's parliament. That's the assemblage of Nigerians. Those are the representatives of Nigerians. So whatever that will lead to desecration of that, the hallowed chambers, we must be very careful how we follow it.
And meanwhile, Nigerians have been reacting to the inability of the National Assembly to reconvene for the consideration of INEC's budget for 2019 general election.
It is not good for the country that the National Assembly could not reconvene to discuss the issue as vital as the budget of the INEC, which definitely will impact very negatively on the conduct of 2019 elections.
If you look at it, those committees has been set up a week ago. What have they been doing for almost a week now that they cannot be able to conclude their request to their report and submit it back to the National Assembly?
How we say the National Assembly should learn how to put a clear demarcation between politics and governance.
If the people we have in the National Assembly are behaving this way, acting in self-defense, in self-orchestration, then we have a problem.
Nigeria is in their hands. They think they can just play with anybody. They think they can do anything they just want, just for their selfish interest.
You could have done that included in 2018 budget, or you send it as a supplementary.
2019, we are talking of less than 6 months now. If by now they are still making one excuse or the other, does it mean that it's a way of trying to substitute the election or what?
Still on the legislature, leadership of the All Progressives Congress has met with APC senators and members of the House of Representatives, calling on the leadership of the National Assembly to reconvene in order to avoid constitutional crisis. Now, this is among matters of urgent attention that engaged participants at the meeting.
Taught us that minority have a right to have their say, but majority must have their way. This is a universal truth.
We have the leadership of the National Assembly divided between the opposition PDP and the APC. Then we have to work so hard to ensure that our government is not sabotaged.
I'm not particularly happy that we are not able to hold our plenary today.
Okay.
And possibly tomorrow, because we decided some few days back that we are going to sit and consider those items that are very important and might likely hamper the functioning of the INEC.
And to other matters now, the federal government, through its Ministry of Water Resources, has signed an agreement with Kano State government to tackle water supply and sanitation challenges in the state. Water Resources Minister Suleiman Adamu and Kano State Governor Abdullahi Umar Gandije signed the agreement under the Partnership for Expanded Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene, PEWASH, in Abuja.
Into 3 phases. Upon full implementation of the 3 phases, it is planned to achieve 0% open defecation and 100% access to water supply, especially in the rural areas.
The total volume of the partnership is in the region of 12.7 billion naira, which is a big amount of money. This daily shows the concern of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammad Buhari, has for our rural.
In a related development, Information and Culture Minister Alhaji Lai Mohammed says as the country inches towards the 2019 general elections, media practitioners have a duty to ensure that fake news is not promoted through any media. The minister restated this during his visit to the corporate headquarters of the Blueprint newspaper in Abuja.
Media should be at the forefront of this campaign, because not only does fake news pose a clear and present danger to the security of any country, but incidentally, the first casualty of fake news is the media itself.
The wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, has received the World Leadership Award from Ajao University, Suwon, in the Republic of Korea. Now, this is in recognition of her contribution to uplifting the living standard of women and children, especially girl child education.
Aisha Muhammad Buhari's effort and achievement to assure the future of the common people and encourage world leaders to aspire to the qualities of good leadership.
The honor done to me today at the Ajuju University here in Korea definitely spurred me to continue with my passion in supporting the needy, not only in Nigeria, but anywhere I have the opportunity. I'm happy to note that as the philosophy of this university will collaborate with my Future Assured initiative under my foundation, Aisha Buhari Foundation, to train students in practical development of acquired knowledge and development of education.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley Arndt Show after this break. Do stay with us.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
makes a Nigerian mom powerful.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be 100% sure.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. Yes, you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils. Strepsils. Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now?
Sure.
This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that
Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1, a delicious combination of rich cocoa and wholesome goodness of milk. Just add hot water to get an instant chocolatey treat. Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1. Just add hot water.
Talking business on Good Morning Nigeria now. 2 million Nigerians to get collateral-free loans in the federal government's new microcredit scheme for petty traders. Details now with Comfort Amodu on Business News.
Welcome. Business operators and petty traders can now heave a sigh of relief as the federal government has launched a collateral-free loan christened Trader Money to support business initiatives. Trader Money initiative is designed to empower 2 million Nigerians under the government's Enterprise and Empowerment Program, JIP. The scheme, which was launched in Lagos, would grant a minimum of 30 to 50,000 naira loans, depending on the trader's ability to pay back the loan within 6 months of grace period. Petty traders in Lagos, Kano and Abia State are the first sets to draw the collateral-free loans of the government.
This is sort of what I call like a push initiative. So we are going to them. For example, we register people at their point of trade. We register people at the point where bulk is being broken. So if you are selling bread, we go to the bakery. That's where you come to collect your bread. If you are selling plantain, we go to the depots where all the plantain is dropped. So we're actually going to them.
Meanwhile, the Debt Management Office, DMO, has raised 410 billion naira from the domestic capital market to fund the 2019 budget. The Director General of the DMO, Patience Oniha, at a press briefing in Abuja also revealed that the nation's public debt stood at 22.379 trillion naira at the end of June, which is equivalent to $73.31 billion, of which $22 billion was external. She maintained that efforts by government has crushed interest rate to a region of 11 to 14% from about 18% last year. Available data indicates that as at 30th of June 2018, the ratio between domestic and external debt stood at 70.30 compared to 73.27 in December 2017.
On behalf of the government, we've been able to support infrastructural development. If you didn't see what we were doing before, now you have seen Sukuk roads clearly labeled. You know that we're supporting infrastructure. A building of external reserves, lowering of domestic interest rates, and then more access to credit for the private sector.
Equally in the equities markets, the bearish hold persists on Tuesday, the 13th of August, as market declined by 0.35%, with the all share closing at 35,288.23 basis points. Here is the closing figures of other trades on the floor of the exchange. And that's business news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. I'm Comfort Amodu. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business news. Next for us now is a review of the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
Yes, we kick off the newspaper reviews with the Nigerian pilot, and its major headline on the front page, of course, is crossfire with the riders. National Assembly APC bicker over resumption. We can't recall members without report to consider, so says Saraki, that's the Senate president. He's postponing resumption date for personal interest. That's attributed to the APC. Declares Saraki's action treasonable. And then above the main headline, INEC registers 23 political parties, extends CVR exercise. Ebonyi people must be healthy to vote for us, Governor Umahi declares. Donates 2 X-ray machines, coaster bus to Fetha. And below the picture story on the front page of the pilot, End SARS, IGP Idris complies with Oshimbajo's order. And there are other pockets of headlines there down the page. PDP will not change its name. That's attributed to Sule Lamido. FG commissions 1.1 billion naira flood control projects in Adamawa. WHO, federal government protects 150,000 people from yellow fever in Katsina. Attempted kidnap, suspect on tramadol overdose, dies 9 days after. Well, Kingsley, you've been talking about that.
That's right.
Contempt, court insists INEC boss must be arrested to appear before it. Let's talk about these issues on the pilot, which I'm sure the other newspapers
The other papers have it. Before we get into the headlines also on the front pages of the other papers, just by the way now, as it were, the tramadol kidnapper in Owo, Ondo State, passed away on Monday evening, because yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, of course, we recalled what occurred last week when they had fallen asleep, after the first day of his arrest. And then it lingered up to the weekend, 5-6 days. But by Monday,
taken such an enormous dose of it, whatever it is.
Well, absolutely so.
And put himself in a coma for days.
For days, yes, until that his internal organs all just packed up. So the story of the tramadol kidnapper obviously has now ended. The search will be on for his accomplices. Now, the other papers that we have, and indeed the other stories, they're also focusing on politics. I will just go from top to bottom, but let me take the lead story from the Punch newspaper, which is also on the National Assembly, and it comes with a kicker. Oshiomhole, Saraki will be lawfully and democratically impeached. With the rider, I insist that 49 senators cannot preside over the affairs of a house in which APC has 56 senators. And the rider says, Senate governed by rules, not dictated from outside the chamber. And that's according to Senate President Saraki. Details of the story can be found on page 7. And then above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper is the headline, Lawmakers can sit anywhere in Benue, Speaker replies court. That's on page 11. And then Obasanjo can't tell us who to vote for. That's according to Tinubu, leader of the APC. And Lagos APC adopts direct primary. Details of that story can be found on page 10. And then an earpiece there, one of the two beside the name flag, supplementary budget. Saraki and Dogara explain delay. That's on page 2. And you see the photographs on the front page, the main photographs there that show the bridge that collapsed in Genoa. That's in northern Italy yesterday. 35 feet killed as bridge collapses in Italy. It's a suspension bridge, unfortunately. it caved in. No fewer than 35 persons are feared dead. NUJ IPC demand release of detained Premium Times reporter. That's page 7. And as Sean read earlier, INEC okays 91 political parties for 2019 polls, disqualifies 121. Those are the stories, plus, of course, Oshibajo orders IG to reorganize SAS. I'm qualified and not desperate to be president. That's according to former Vice President Atiku. So let's take a look at the stories.
Yes, the crossfire, incidentally, that's our topic for discussion this morning. I mean, every day, new things happening, bring more issues coming up for us to know that this impasse might take a while before it dies down.
It might take a while. The earpiece I read from the Punch a moment ago dealing with the supplementary budget as to why there will be a delay. The spokespersons to the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives issued a statement yesterday indicating why the National Assembly couldn't reconvene yesterday, nor could it reconvene today. And a number of the members are said to have proceeded on their holidays as they directed when they closed, when they shut down plenary. Some of them have also gone on pilgrimage. But there's also a technical aspect that the joint committees of the National Assembly, let's say of the House and the Senate, were working on aspects of some of the communication that the President transmitted to the National Assembly, and that the reports were not ready. So if they precisely if they reconvene, it will be an exercise in futility. That is according to the spokespersons to the leaders of the National Assembly. And as you said, the fireworks continue. Party chairman of the APC has said that Saraki will be lawfully and democratically impeached. And of course, Saraki is responding that they are governed by rules.
And the other major headlines across the newspapers is the SARS issue. You know, there's been talk about end SARS lately because of some of the activities of some of the operatives of the SARS. So let's go to the Daily Sun, which has it as its major headline. The kicker, as Oshimbajo reads the Riot Act, SARS shake-up. With riders quad to existing state zonal commands under commissioner, now to engage in intelligence gathering, fight armed robbery, kidnapping. Operatives barred from stop and search. And we go below the picture story on the front page of the Daily Sun. Khan declares 3-day national prayer for peace security. Arrest warrant on INEC chairman stands, judge insists. As Commission registers 23 new political parties. That's another story, a developing story there, the arrest warrant of on the INEC chairman. And why Buhari will win in 2019, that's according to the presidency.
When the End SARS campaign started some months ago, the police high command took some steps to realign the operations of SARS, because what appeared to have occurred was that the operatives of SARS were now going beyond their mandate. It was a special anti-robbery squad. Of course, on account of the spike in kidnapping activities across the country, the SARS then incorporated that into part of their operations of dealing with armed robbery. But it would appear from the various reports that were published or broadcast from time to time that SARS operatives now started also getting into financial crimes, all in the name of chasing the so-called Yahoo boys. That any apparently good-looking young man was arrested on the street, and oftentimes there were also instances or allegations of extortion. You know, if they found you riding, say, one favorite car, I don't want to mention the name of the car. They found you riding that very car. They will ask you, look, what do you do? You know, where did you get it from? Take us to your ATM. You know, all kinds of extortion. So now that the operations are going to be streamlined, we do hope that indeed, yes.
Yes, one would think that it's the lack of streamlining of their operations and then letting them know their bounds and the limits of their operations. That's why some of them were going outside these things and then just doing things the way they like.
There was no reprimand. There was no reprimand at the time the operatives, were engaging in some of the excesses. But I have a concern. Now, part of what has been said now is that they have been restrained now from engaging in stop and search. How can you carry that out? I mean, if you have armed robbers or kidnappers who are in flight and you need to track them, how will you track them?
Well, just hope that the impunity will be checked, and that the crimes also would be checked. Well, the same thing is what we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. We've gone over that. Osinbajo orders overhaul of SARS. Do you have other headlines?
Yeah, that's right. The overhaul of SARS. You talked about the political parties. I think we have the story.
Yes, and the arrest warrant on the INEC chairman.
On INEC chairman. The INEC chairman, of course, that's a legal matter. Yes. Because it's the matter went to the Court of Appeal, but the judge is insisting that his earlier order for his arrest, should be carried out. So we see how that legal process plays out. But the other concern has to do with the registration of 23 additional political parties. Before the disclosure yesterday, the country had 68 political parties. There are already concerns as to how INEC might be able to manage these 91 political parties in the course of a general election. How will your ballot paper look like? When you are having so many instances of rejected ballots or invalid votes, how will you manage a ballot paper containing 91 political parties with, I don't know what the logos look like. I'm sure that we'll start seeing all kinds of, some will have a snail, some will have all kinds of animals, crocodile, and so on and so forth.
Let's quickly take a look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Down the front page, there are a couple of stories of concern there. Electricity workers threaten to shut installations. That's the Nigerian Tribune. And then Lagos ranked among least livable cities in the world. I'm sure Lagosians will kick against this. Army uncovers Boko Haram recruitment linked on social media. Well, we hope electricity workers will not shut down installations, not at this point again.
Well, that's electricity workers, it's only one part of the value chain. The electricity workers, these are the transmission company of Nigeria,
but it's a chain.
which is owned by the government. You have the GENCOs, you have the DISCOs, and the workers under the TCN are complaining about their CEO. There are all kinds of issues with regard to recruitment, promotion, and on all the matters. We do hope that the appropriate authorities will step in. They had also indicated that there were no returns being made to the FROS on account of deductions. The Minister of Labour and Employment, as well as that of Power, Works and Housing, have tried to step in. Apparently, they didn't get the relief that they require. But we do hope that they will actually step in much more decisively now to deal with the concerns raised by the employees who are workers of the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Yesterday, we took a lead story from this day newspaper indicating that the president had vetoed the electoral amendment bill. That's the one that was sent to the president. Now, there's an update, which is still today a lead story for this day newspaper, and it comes with a kicker: presidency. Buhari vetoed electoral amendment act bill to prevent constitutional infraction, says president considering fresh bill. In other words, there were two bills. The one that this day reported yesterday as having been vetoed was the earlier one sent to the National Assembly. Now, this is a fresh communication, a fresh bill considered and passed by the two chambers of National Assembly.
Which, of course, should have looked into the concerns raised.
That's right. Forwarded, transmitted, rather, that's the technical word, transmitted to the president on the 1st of August. So it isn't time out yet, as it were, in terms of the constitutional provision with regard to the president either indicating his accent or withholding his accent. So that's the update. The Electoral Amendment Act bill is still before the president for his accent. Above that story from this day newspaper, you have the occurrences, of course, on the National Assembly. No basis to reconvene National Assembly. Now, above the nameplate of this day newspaper, very quickly, Nigeria's total debt hits 22.37 trillion naira in June, and the federal government borrows 410 billion naira to fund 2018 budget. Now, let's take a look, Sheil, at the editorial this morning. It's coming from the Nigerian Pilot. Again, the title of the editorial, as it were, virtually speaks for itself. It says, Detaching Nigeria's Security Agencies from Politics. And the editorial opens by saying that recent happenings in the country's security sector and its impact on our democracy and governance have drawn attention to a national urgency, which is the need to re-engineer the security architecture and completely detach it from politics.
Yes, there's a burning need for that, so that our democracy will not be threatened like it was last week. I mean, people who saw what was going on TV were afraid to say, what on earth is going on here? So this just needs to be...
That's right. And the paper, of course, is making reference not only to the DSS, but indeed to other security agencies.
And
to say that they must now, of course, draw a line, beyond which they cannot step, especially with the involvement of politicians. All right, so that's the much that we can take in our newspaper review segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with how to try to resolve the impasse in the National Assembly.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold? No. They are spread through germs which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath, bath, bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three put
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah? I was
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
For years, the NTA has been promoting science, technology, arts and crafts under the tagged name National Children's Expo. We are set with another edition as we gather children around Nigeria, junior category ages 6 to 12 and senior category ages 13 to 18. The theme for Expo 2018, achieving self-sufficiency in agriculture, meeting the challenges of security and exposition of alternative energy as pathways to national development. Date, October 21st to 25th, 2018. Venue, NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. We are set to celebrate the best of innovation across the country. For more information, please call the following numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network. Now, the 8th Assembly, that's the 8th National Assembly, has, as it were, had a crisis of confidence since its inauguration in June of 2015. Sometimes hot, sometimes cold. But a few weeks ago, matters, of course, blew in the open. And the matters have been compounded by the recent defections in both chambers of the National Assembly, with calls, for instance, for the Senate President to step down on account of the fact that he has defected from the ruling APC now to the minority PDP in the Senate. And the matter, of course, again, has been further compounded by the fact that the National Assembly proceeded abruptly, some would say, on its annual vacation to resume sometime in September. There have been calls for the members to reconvene, and there were attempts, of course, to reconvene this week. Unfortunately, that didn't quite pan out. The crisis of confidence continues, and it's now been described as an impasse, with threats and counter-threats and allegations and counter-allegations. Last week, the country witnessed the siege laid to the National Assembly by operatives of the DSS, again with its own consequences. How should the lingering impasse in the National Assembly be resolved? We have guests with us in the studios here, as well as at some of our network centers, to discuss these issues in greater detail. First again, we'd like to welcome a familiar face now, Good Morning Nigeria public officer himself, who's been in the House of Representatives as well as in the Senate, distinguished Senator Ita Ena, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senate. Senator Ita Ena, pleasure to have you again on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. And then also here with us in the studios is the political affairs analyst, Prince Bumola Martins. Prince Martins, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
All right.
And also joining us from our Kaduna studio is Professor Kabir Mato, a member of the Kaduna Exco and a political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us, Prof.
Thank you. Good morning.
We also have a guest in our Lagos studios, and Senator Mike Ajebo is a member of the 6th National Assembly and a member of the National Association of President, National Association of Catholic Lawyers. Thank you also for joining us.
Good morning, viewers.
Welcome you. Well, let's begin the conversation, of course, by getting in, that will be a ranking senator, I believe, Ita, so you will hear that precedence to him. Senator Mike Ajebo, let's begin with you at our Lagos Network Center. Could you attempt to contextualize what has been playing out in the National Assembly?
Actually, I think that there's a big misapprehension of issues here. Political party leaders are unnecessarily overheating the polity. The situation is this. Number one, by Section 60 of the Constitution, the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House, have powers to regulate their own affairs. And based on this, they issued some standing orders. And under the standing orders, if the Senate or the House is adjourned to a particular day, and the leaders of the political parties in that house, in a house like the Senate, for example, approach the leadership of the Senate and indicate that due to national emergency or whatever reason, it is in the interest of the public that they should reopen the assembly. The rule of the Senate, in this chapter 3, says that the Senate president may, I'm happy that Senator Itanyang is here because he was a chairman of the rules, in the Senate at the point in time. So the issue now is, have we heard from the leadership of the Senate and the House to indicate whether they perceive the situation the same way as the leaders of APC has portrayed it? Because all along, I've only been listening to one side of the story by the leaders of the APC, and I haven't heard much from the leaders of the PDP on the issue of reconvening the House. Be that as it may, the most important thing here, observing the rules of natural justice, or the alterum partem, you must hear the other side. Then to make matters worse, I just saw an advert on the NTA now, which stated clearly about issue of hate speech. I think what we are descending into now is more or less getting into hate speech by one party against the other. And that is frightening because it's overheating the polity. And I don't see any cause for overheating the polity because the issue at stake is the INEC budget. And it is not a supplementary budget from the way I understood it, but environment. And we have to give chance to the both committees, the joint committee, the finance committee of both houses to meet and come up with something. I hear that both the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House have issued a statement that those two committees have not even finished meeting. And if you look at the volume of the money involved, and if it is for environment, it affects other aspects of the budget. Therefore, they have to look into all these things and come out with a viable position. Even if the executive budgets it this way, the Section 81 of the Constitution gives the National Assembly power to look into it. If it is environment, Section 80, subsection 4 of the Constitution does that. So I don't know why we are overheating the polity unnecessarily.
Kabiru Mato in Kaduna now. And Professor Mato, when the distinguished senator was speaking now, he seems to have enumerated that this looks like misappropriation of issues and then unnecessarily heating up the polity. Do you agree with that, or what's your take on the impasse in the National Assembly?
Well, thank you very much. I do not agree with the view of Senator Ajebo that the polity is being unnecessarily overheated. First of all, let me try to say with all sense of sincerity that what's happening today is not an impasse. It's just a matter of nomenclature which Nigerians are trying to give what I perceive basically as a deliberate attempt by the leadership of the National Assembly to respond to the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerian people by way of cutting short whatever break or leave there in to come back and look at a budget proposal that is intended to lay a solid foundation for perhaps a free, fair, and credible election come February 2019. This basically is the question, and it stems from a very a very obvious reality. And what's the reality? The reality is that there's this serious apprehension on the part of especially the presiding officers of the two chambers that in the event they reconvene, something that they do not like is likely going to happen to them. This is really the way I see it. It's not about overheating polity. It's about what I will say a continuous dereliction of responsibility on the part of the leadership of the National Assembly. For God's sake, the 2018 budget was before the National Assembly for a period more than 6 months before it was passed. This is very injurious to our body policy. This is very injurious to our economic and social policies as a people and as a nation. And here we are faced with a leadership that is apparently becoming more recalcitrant in the name of preserving its rights and privileges. I thought leadership of presiding officers in the National Assembly a matter of first among equals. That's basically the way I look at it. There is no impasse as far as I see it. I see it basically as this desperate desire to hang on to certain political positions that some of these leaders are occupying. So the issue of impasse, in my view, is completely not the scenario before us. And yes, of course, the polity probably is being overheated, as Senator Mike just said, because this may be his perception. And one of the basic issues that we face as a people or as a nation is that we don't seem to have a minimum level of understanding the reality of our socio-economic and political existence within and among the elite class. We all try to, throw meanings and interpretations of whatever that we see happening that seems to either tow with national integrity or national objectives from our own personal standpoint. So I want to think that it is not, like I said, an impasse. It is you know, the desire to hang on to political positions. And I think what must be done, and if, of course, the Senate and the House rules have stipulated very clearly that you can elect a presiding officer by a simple majority, but you need two-thirds majority to remove him. I don't see any reason why the leadership of the two chambers should continue to be frightened by the reality. I mean, this is really holding Nigeria to ransom. And I think what stops, for instance, the various committees, INEC and appropriation in the Senate and the House, from sitting down to look at this budget, it's a piece of work that can be done within a period of 5 to 7 days. So why are they prolonging it? Why are they extending it? The same sort of people will come out and throw political propaganda very soon to say that in the event, God forbid, anything goes wrong with the preparation towards the election, that, you know, the government is doing this or that. I think we need to be a little more objective and look at this issue from, you know, neutral standpoint, so that we can, you know, ask the National Assembly, put our pressures. When the Department of State Services last week invaded the National Assembly, as wrongful as that particular incident was, we saw the response, you know, that accompanied that from the acting president. That's the way to go. That's political maturity. That's governance. That's leadership. You know, but for a Senate, for a House of Representatives, I mean, I can't understand why the Senate President or the Speaker will say that they saw no basis of reconvening the National Assembly. Of course there is basis. Of course there are reasons, even for the fact that the nation is under tumultuous political tension, defection, as far as, you know, peripheral third world capitalist formation like the one we are operating today, trying to grasp the meaning of Western liberal democracy is concerned, is what you will continue to witness, is what you will continue to see over time. So I don't see anything wrong with that, but I want to call on the Senate, I want to call on the House of Representatives to look at Nigeria, to look at the project that is ahead of Nigeria, the 2019 election, the welfare of the people, and they need to fast track, because the efficacy and efficiency of any legislature is measured in terms of its capacity to come forth with proactive legislations, laws, for the good governance of the particular political entity. This seems to be lacking in this scenario.
Right, Professor Kabir Mato, thank you very much there for your opening salvo. Maybe we'll give you some time to catch your breath, and then you'll look for a synonym for us to replace impasse, because all that you have described tended also to agree with the impasse that we have said. But regardless, we'll come back to you at our Kaduna Network studios. Let's bring in our guest now in Abuja here with us, Prince Abola Martins. Let's have your opening thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. I think, I don't know why we are all shying away from the truth. And I don't know why we are...
Who are those shying away from the truth?
A lot of people who should know better. Okay, let me start this way. We're all alive, we're all in this country. When the DSS Director General, Daura, the former one, wrote a letter that he's not supposed to do in the first place to the National Assembly, to the Senate President. And everybody, even the opposition, were glad. Nobody was saying anything. I mean, it was okay for them because it suits what they are doing. Nobody's thinking, what could be behind this thing? Why a former DG Director General of SSS, who is meant to be responsible to the President, could write such a letter to the Senate President as against the wish of the President who is serving? Everybody kept quiet because it's okay. No noise in the social media, no noise in the mainstream media. Okay, it's okay. Now, when the same...
Which letter are you referring to?
I'm referring to the letter that, that stops Magu from being, confirmed as the chairman of EFCC. Everybody kept quiet. Now, the moment the same man mobilized his SSS official to block the National Assembly, there's shout. Everywhere, everybody's complaining and there are a lot of issues. We are not thinking, what is leading to all these things? Who is playing this game? And like someone told me, say, look, from the beginning, say, look, the former DGSSS has been always playing along with the Senate President. It's just like a tool for them to use.
We have no evidence.
No, I just say someone.
Buttress that. Yes.
No. I'm just saying someone just said that to me. And if you look at exactly what is happening, you realize that some certain things are happening that it shouldn't have happened. I will give you an example. The National Assembly should be a place for at least for where the common man can say, we have, where someone can represent us and tell the world and do what things that will suit us. But unfortunately, right now, I respect all the senators because it's not easy to get there. But the truth is, are these people really serving us? If a Senate who knows that the budget is very critical to the lives of even the poor and the rich, and then you found out that these same senators will delay the budget even 6 months more. They pass the budget when you know that there is rainy season. Even the president won't be able to execute some certain project like roads and other things at the time you are passing the budget. Everybody kept quiet. Nobody see anything wrong with it. It looks normal. And then at the end of the day, if the government could not really carry out some particular thing, everybody start condemning the government. So I think if you look at all these things, you know that the Senate itself, with due respect to them, they are not totally, not all of them, but most of them are not totally honest with Nigerians. It seems that personal interest has overridden the national interest. And they are trying to load it on everybody. If you speak the truth, they will say you are speaking for the government. The only thing some of them want is just come out, condemn the government, good or bad. But where the government has done wrong, let us tell them they have gone wrong, and that's okay. And where they have done well, let us tell them that they have done well. But at this point, the Senate has not done justice to us as people. And I think that they should start to think now. I think they should reconvene, because the reason why you see all these things is because somebody is scared, will I be impeached, will I, and all that. But your personal thing shouldn't be the issue. The Senate is not the right of anybody. The Senate leadership, or even being a senator, is not the right of everybody. It's the right of all Nigerians. If you are qualified, you can be there. So I think that the Senate should begin now to think that for the sake of this country, if they truly love this country, as they are trying to portray, for us to see, they should reconvene quickly and do the needful. And this is very, very important.
All right, Senator Itaina, I'd like you to contextualize this, but let's back up a bit, again, on account of the fact that we've always had you as a guest. You were a member of the 7th Assembly, and near the end of the tenure of the 7th Assembly, we had you on this program. And one of the issues we were discussing on that occasion had to do with the frosty relationship between the National Assembly and the executive branch in a situation where, for instance, the ruling party at the time had a majority. And you made some proposals, with regard to how to smoothen the relationship between the executive and the National Assembly. You've been on this job now for 3 years plus. The kind of impasse that we are seeing now, did you envisage this as part of the items you have to deal with on your plate? And how do you conceive of all of this?
Well, it was envisaged because it was envisaged on account of the fact that the way the leadership of the National Assembly emerged they were independent. And again, there were certain other underlying factors that made it possible to envisage this. Throughout the previous 16 years, it was PDP in power, and the APC was just coming in. And there were definitely likely to be these challenges. So it was envisaged. But the extent was not envisaged. Now, I want to urge the legislators, the senators and members of the House of Representatives, to please listen to the public, because it does appear that it is true that the public may be getting impatient with the legislature. Impatient in the sense that when you look at the temperature, or you feel the temperature on the temperament of the public over the delays, over what the public is perceiving as delay, I have to mind my words, because as a diplomat, I must be politically correct to both ends.
That's right.
At this time, they should listen to the public, because one, there is practically economic shutdown, the shutdown of the economy. And I repeat, shutdown of the economy.
How?
Yes, because one, the budget that was passed was a deficit budget. And to finance it, you have to raise money from the capital market. If you don't raise the money, you can't fund the budget. And if you look at what we're getting from what the federal government is getting from the federation allocation, from the federation account, that is the federal government share, it is not enough to pay ongoing contractors, ongoing projects on the site. And so it may not be even remain, it may not even remain to commence other projects. Now, you look at the Federal Capital Territory, the budget had lapsed for a long time. They cannot do any other thing. You look at most of the 64 agencies, the budget had exhausted, it has not been passed, and this budget was laid before the National Assembly on the 7th of November 2017. Now, all these are pending. A lot of appointments are pending. Now, Mr. President sent the environment, having agreed that when the budget was given to him, if he does not sign the budget and send it back, that correct this so that the budget can be well implemented, it may delay for a long time. But he said, I will send environment and supplementary. And he signed and said, let other elements go on. Get this done for me so that I can, the economy can move. Now, after that, Mr. President submitted, it is not being addressed. Now, again, even if the National Assembly were to pass INEC budget, it is just an infinitesimal part of it. It doesn't solve the problem because the Independent National Electoral Commission cannot conduct election without the backing of the other security agencies. Now, what did Mr. President present before the National Assembly? He presented budget of Independent National Electoral Commission, budget of the Office of the National Security Advisor, budget of the Nigerian Police Force, budget of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, budget of Nigerian Customs Service, and budget of one other security agency. Now, if you pass the budget of INEC, 2 things or 3 things will still be wrong. One, unless we raise money, and that raising of money cannot be done without a resolution of the National Assembly, it may still not be possible to have enough money to finance the budget, including conducting election, including the security agencies. Now, Mr. President had made this request, and it is lying on the table of the National Assembly. Again, and this request is to raise the sum of $2.78 billion US, 2.7 US dollars from on the Eurobond in the international capital market. Now, it is another one is to raise the sum of $82.5 million US dollars to refinance, raise that to refinance part of the $500 million US dollars debt which matured on the 12th of July. Sorry, I have to get into these details for the public to know exactly where Nigeria is. I have been a lot diplomatic, but I think like a father in a home, sometimes you don't let fathers don't let the children or don't let the public, the family know exactly what it is. But I think we have to bring out little pieces of what it is and Nigeria and President Buhari will not want to touch any money, even if it is on his table or in his drawer, unless the National Assembly approves it. So I'm pleading with the National Assembly. Yes, there could be these issues. There had always been issues. What is happening now, I wouldn't say it is impasse. I wouldn't say it is shutdown. I've used those words though. But I would say it's political activism. But let this political activism not get to the extent of being a danger to the country. Nigerians are the first persons to be served. And the legislature, I know they appreciate the pivotal role they play. It is the first arm of government. It is the first listed in the Constitution. They are first to approve the money before the executive can touch. If they don't approve the money, the president can't touch the money. And if he doesn't touch the money, days are going. The political parties have issued dates for the different congresses to choose their candidates for the election. So it is getting nearer. And the budget, again, was vehement and supplementary. Yes, you may have committed the budget to the Committee on INEC. But then there must be the Committee on Finance to determine the source of money for which you want to give to INEC, national security, and all that. Then there must be other committees. There must be the appropriation to look at the environment element, because part of the money you want to raise to fund INEC and other agencies has to come from environment. And so it is not just right. It is not just that a committee of INEC has been asked to come and provide and look at the INEC budget. No. And if you look at INEC budget alone, not other agencies, one, you will not have money. The appropriate processes of raising the money to give to INEC will not be done. So it is more complex than simplistic as it is being presented. So I join my voice again to members of the Nigerian public, with the executive, to urge the legislature that the public and the Nigeria is suffocating, not bleeding. It is suffocating because it cannot breathe. It has money, some money it cannot touch. It is looking for money in the capital market which is available. It cannot borrow because the Constitution had vested powers in you. And please come back, exercise those powers. I can understand their apprehension. Yes. But it is normally
going to the issues that, because the National Assembly too has raised some issues, especially this, well, it was a joint statement saying that some of the committees that were supposed to meet to present reports to them that they are supposed to act upon have not even met, or nor have they given them any reports to work on. That how would they now come back there, knowing that they actually went on this recess according to the House rules, not that it was outside of their rules?
The National Assembly, the legislature, I was in the National Assembly for 16 years. I was in the National Assembly for 16 years. Okay. The legislature has ingenious ways of carrying out its functions. No committee of the legislature can meet to consider anything unless it is committed to her, unless the leadership of the National Assembly commits that assignment to that committee. The assignment is committed either by resolution of the House on the floor, or the presiding officer can say, yes, we have an emergency. I instruct this committee to meet on this. Now, if you direct them and you give them deadlines, they will meet and bring out what you've asked them to meet. So, yes, they don't need to sit because there is no committee report. But first, commit these things to the committees. That's number one. Number two, there is always, when there is an emergency like this, you don't need to commit most of the things to the committee. You come in and sit as in committee of whole. That is, the whole House takes the matter and passes it. We've had situations in the National Assembly where a matter arises and it is taken, that it is, a communications comes from the president that day. It is considered, taken that day, read that day, and considered and passed that day. You know, I want to say that the legislature, the rules is the rules of the legislature, and they can, they can suspend the rules to do some other thing, and then immediately after that, the rules becomes restored. I want to say that I give it to the National Assembly. I praise them because they had scheduled all these things to do on 24th, 25th, and 25th, 24th, 25th, and 26th. All these things were scheduled in the order paper, in the notice paper to do. But it was just the holiday, the exigency they had on the 24th, which prompted an abrupt adjournment. So having had that intervening reason, a force majeure, a reason that is not yours, now please consider that they were right to have adjourned, because it is it is conventional to have a 2-month break. So it is not that they have gone on break irrationally or unreasonably. It is standard. Even the legislature, even the judiciary, they have what we call the legal vacation. 2 months it is, sometimes 9 weeks. So the legislature is actually right to have proceeded on vacation. But now the law, the standing orders also provides when there is an emergency, when there are issues that were not considered, you are to reconvene. Again, it is provided that the leaders of the political parties represented in the House can represent to the presiding officers that there is a need to convene. That representation may not be known to the public. It may just be presented in the manner that they normally do it. That's not a back channel thing. So it cannot even be said that the leaders of the political parties have not represented. But I want to say that I've listened to the political parties and their members of the House have started by themselves urging the leadership to reconvene the House. And I believe that from the public pressure, from the suffocation of the economy, and the near anger of Nigerians, I think they will convene. I must say that I've been working with the leadership, and they are finding ingenious, convenient ways of reconvening, and they are very determined.
Kingsley, a lot of semantics are being thrown at us here today, but then we all have to agree that there are issues between the National
There's no doubt about that.
and the executive.
That's why we said it's on impasse, by the way. I mean, we said that, sure, I agree with you. Let's go over to Senator Ajegbo in Lagos. Senator Mike Ajegbo, I've been listening to the other guests, and in particular now Senator Ita Ina, crunch the issues with regard to lingering appropriation and environment matters. What's your reaction?
I'm not completely happy with the way Senator Ita Ina presented it, because we were together in the National Assembly. I was in the Senate and he was in the House. On the issue of money matters, it is it's guided by the Constitution, not by the standing orders. And here the Constitution provides that about the Finance Committee, the joint meeting of the Finance Committees. If that is the issue, these committees need to meet and present a paper to the to both houses of the National Assembly. You cannot suspend the Constitution. You can suspend the standing orders, but not the Constitution. Number two, there's a problem we are having. I said it at the beginning. It's a problem that is bordering on hate speech. The pressure on the leadership of the National Assembly, the pressure on Dr. Saraki to resign. Let me take you back to 1999. What happened, the emergence of leadership in 1999 is also the way the leadership of this assembly emerged. And what happens when leadership emerged that way? They stop behaving based on party lines. The Senate now becomes independent of the party. And this is what happened. APC tolerated it. When the person they wanted to be the Senate president didn't emerge as such, another person emerged. They tolerated it. Why is it that today, when they know that they don't have the numbers, because the Section 50 subsection 2 is very clear on the matter, you need 2/3 of all the members of the Senate. I've seen a number of arguments being, circulated in the social media as the 2/3 of people sitting. No, it's 2/3 of the total. So it is, in my place, we say it's only a tree that we hear you are going to kill it and still stands in the same place. The issue is, there's been enough willingness from the part of the leadership to reconvene the National Assembly. But the issue is this. We are talking about the plenary session. The committees are working. Even Senator Inan admitted that. If the committees are working, can they not be allowed to finish their work and present it to the plenary so that the plenary can work on it? So if you call back the plenary today, what are they going to be doing in the National Assembly? Another set of agitation will come in, overheating of the polity. Please, can we allow them some time? And I'm sure that the leadership of both houses are not unreasonable. They are listening to what the public is saying, but unfortunately, they have not educated the public very well as to the workings in the National Assembly. Every bill passes through a number of stages. That's what the Constitution says. So they have to follow those steps. And I'm sure by their indicating they wanted to meet on Monday, to reconvene on Monday, that shows willingness on their part. But when they sat there, they discovered that the committees have not finished their work. So, and I know for sure that a number of the senators are not easily available. They have to come back from wherever they are. So please, let us not continue overheating the polity. My friend, the prof from Kaduna, said that he doesn't agree about the issue of overheating the polity. There's overheating of the polity. People are getting worried. The issue of hate speech is coming into it, and this is very dangerous for the country. Please, let's take it easy. But then finally, what happened to what is called planning? I'll ask Prof this question. We knew we are going to have election in 2019. We submitted a budget in November last year. Senator Twinan was with me in the National Assembly. We've always screamed, we need the proposed plan at about 6 months before end of the year to enable it be passed for it to take effect from January. We are already in August. The budget for next year, the draft has still not gone to National Assembly. We are going to have the same problem. Why can't we plan in this country, for goodness sake? This is my problem. Then after, we now start pressurizing the legislature to pass the Appropriation Act, while the planning was not done as I went due. This is my problem. We have an impasse. There's a hate speech. Please, we have to calm down the polity. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we don't have enough elders who can call people to order and say, look, stop this rubbish. I know in England, they have Committee of 1929 in the Conservative Party. I remember when Mrs. Thatcher was in Paris and said she was going to recontest. As soon as she came back, Committee of 1929 told her, rubbish, you cannot just go and recontest that way. You have to pass through that Committee of 1929. I remember Al Gore, when he won the election in the US, he had a problem too. They called him. I said, hey, stop. You are disgracing the image of US. We don't really care whether you won the election or not. The problem is the council of, we are supposed to have, to sort out these things is not very effective in this country. That's my position on this.
Thank you, Senator Ajebo. We will go to Kaduna to meet Professor Mato now. The senator raised some issues there, and then even our other guests have raised issues of why the National Assembly needs to reconvene now. And then one would now also talk to the point of the need to plan. These things have been on the table. We know these things are going to happen on these days, especially the issues of the election, the economy, and so on. So, Prof, now I'll put it to you. Do we have an emergency on our hands now if the National Assembly does not reconvene now?
Well, yes, I think we have an emergency. And just like Senator Twinan rightly mentioned, it took the National Assembly more than 7 months to pass the 2018 appropriation. And the president agreed to assent to the appropriation bill on the grounds that he was going to submit a supplementary budget in order to take care of certain specific, requirements and pitfalls within the 2018 budget as was passed by the National Assembly. So, you see, one of the major issues that I think should be put clearly on the table is the fact that the function of the legislature basically is lawmaking, oversight and representation. And if you are talking about lawmaking, the most important law that a legislature makes is the appropriation law. So that is why the centrality of politics is economics. Economics is central, to virtually everything that we do, especially politics and governance. And this is now the situation that we find ourselves as a nation. Elections are coming. It's not just about going to the polls in February. There are certain steps, there are certain things that really need to be done everything put in place, leading to the election. By the time these resources are not cleared and made available, then it becomes very difficult for the various institutions, not just INEC, the security, apparatuses and other relevant, machineries that will be useful in the conduct of the election to be able to discharge their responsibilities as it should be. And the implication of that is that it will have a very negative effect on the character and the quality of the elections that we are likely going to have in 2019. I don't know whether the leadership of the National, because I don't want to say the National Assembly. I'm aware that the House of Representatives, through the Deputy Speaker, met and said they were going to reconvene. I'm also aware that the Senate, majority of the senators will want the leadership of the chamber to also reconvene. So they look at it. And the whole noise about, committee looking at these things, people are trying to magnify it. With all due respect to a very fine gentleman, distinguished Senator Mike Ajegbo, who is, calling for the formation of an elders committee that will be more or less advising on critical issues or intervening when, the political system is under hit as it is today. But you see, the moment we continue to look at these issues from our various political standpoints, then it becomes very difficult to comprehend the magnitude of the issue and the likely consequences that you're talking about. Planning. Yes, planning is good. As I speak with you today at 10 o'clock this morning, the governor of Kaduna said we'll present before the State Assembly the 2019 budget estimates. And we hope that very soon that will be done. But that is also a function of a willing legislature. A legislature that will dump very important documents such as budget proposals for a period not less than 6 months, speaks volume about the character and the leadership of that particular legislature. And let me tell you from Senator Ajegbo, Senator Itainang, I am personally, an external member of the National Assembly because I have provided consultancy services and other technical, inputs in the last 16 years of this, 16 years, in the first 16 years of this civil rule. So we know the ground rules, we know how these things are done, and we know when the need to change from the old order to the new order is more imperative than it has ever been. And the support of the legislature is very, very critical. It cannot continue to be business as usual. Once the leadership of the legislature feels uncomfortable with the executive, it becomes a problem. And this is an abuse of the privileges that this particular APC administration, in my view, is bringing to the table. We were in this country, in the first 5 years, from 1999 up to 2005, the Senate had 5 different Senate presidents, and we all know why. All the 5 states in the southeastern state had 1 Senate president between 1919 and 2004. This is not a government that, in my view, is twisting the legislature or the leadership of the legislature. It's a straightforward matter. It's a matter that has to do with the future of Nigeria, with the well-being of the citizens of this country, and I'm optimistic that reason will prevail over and above any personal, desire or objective on the part of any of the presiding officers, and then let them. Committees can work at any time. But like Senator Itainang said, the leadership of the chamber will have to, first of all, refer the particular item to the committee or the committees before such committees will work on them. Are we sure they have done that? If they have done that, what is taking time? This is a matter of emergency. And any issue that has to do with emergency is normally given a treatment, that characterizes that type of emergency. And I'm of the view that this is an emergency, and the leadership of the National Assembly should have a rethink, just like Senator Inang said, so that Nigerians don't continue to get angry. And I'm also thinking that this continuous suffocation of the Nigerian economy and political space by personal ambition has the consequence of probably drawing more, condemnation, not just condemnation, but, ill feelings and hate on the, in the minds of Nigerians. I don't believe that the call by the APC chairman for Senate president to to leave is a hate speech. That's not hate speech. Yes, you are elected there and your party, the leadership of your party didn't want you to be Senate President, but the entire senators said you should be because you belong to a majority party. That's given. Now you have stepped away. I am of the view that the Senate President should follow the line of Senator Akpabio, who first of all resigned as the Senate Minority Leader before decamping or before defecting to the APC. So you cannot leave APC that controls more than 50% of the Senate and insist you want to hang on to power. I mean, it's honorable. You are a politician. If you think you can win and come back anytime, and if you think you can win majority seats in 2019, please resign, go back, contest, and then come back. If I were in the National Assembly, if I'm in a position to do that, I will simply declare the seat of the Senate President vacant.
Right, Professor Kabir Mato, thank you very much there for your thoughts again. We'll return to you. Let's bring in Prince Martins here with us in the Abuja studios.
Yeah, well, I think we need to get something in the right perspectives. The question that I want to ask the Senate is, these committees, are they committees set up outside the Senate? These are committees set up by the Senate themselves. So the problem is the Senate themselves. So if they know that, they know the importance of this budget. We all know that's why they are there. So if they have this thing with them before now, what they should have done, because they know the importance, they themselves, they are going to run for an election. So they know the importance of it. They should know that they have time frame to be able to do this before they go on recession. But the problem they have is personal. For me, if you ask me, this is my personal opinion, we delay everything. We make it a little bit difficult. This is my own personal opinion. And that is why I'm saying that the problem still goes back to the Senate. If they know, and I think they know, that this budget should be passed before now, if it is something that has to do with their own personal self, I'm sure it will not take them weeks to do it. But because this has to do with something that has to do with the entire country, that's why you see it. But like one of my colleagues just mentioned now, if it is the Senate or the Senate President is thinking because if we reconvene, maybe someone is going to impeach me and all that, I think it is like, it's more of a personal thing. Because if you move away from a party that has a majority in the Senate, and the party that has this majority is saying, we want you out. For me, it's not life and death. I don't know why in this country it's always difficult for us to resign when there is need to do so. We just want to kick to power no matter what happens. I think that is the problem. So my advice, even to the Senate President, is for them to reconvene quickly, because the common man on the street is not part of this committee they are mentioning now. They know this committee, they set this committee up, and they should know that the committee should know better that what they need to do, they should have done it even before now. It's not to wait till they're about to go on vacation, and then they are now giving us excuses that because, it's their right to go on vacation, so for that reason, we have to understand. We cannot understand because we know that they should have done this before now. This is just the point. And I think they should begin to look at this now. And like the other senator mentioned that they should be, like the budget for next year should have been by now. When the one you already have, you cannot even do it. You want me to submit another one. When you already have one, we are not even touching. So this is the problem. And I think the Senate should sit up and should do the needful.
Thank you very much, Prince. Now, we'll take a short break now. We've been having robust discussions on the need to break the impasse in the National Assembly. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Winning in hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another.
What keeps you so cool, man?
Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 naira only.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. No be only to connect lights.
Come you and yourself now.
Now wow. Oh boy, calm down now. Oga Kasali electrician who would they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, wetin him talk make sense. Oh boy, make we carry this ladder comot from here.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're still on the topic resolving or breaking the impasse in the National Assembly. We have a number of tweets that have come in. We'll take our first set now and then return very quickly to our guests. Jill?
Yes, Festus Akimboyewa says the defection of the Senate President, Senator Saraki, aggravated the impasse in the National Assembly, and only one man can prolong or break the impasse, and that man is Saraki himself, either by resigning or staying put.
Sani Michael Amakoji, political parties are unnecessarily overheating the polity. Are the parties' constitutions supreme to the Nigerian constitution? Perhaps we understand that what seems politically right might not be legally right. Therefore, asking the Senate President to resign is not constitutional.
And then Cecilia Okoroma says, our leaders must remember that power is ephemeral. People sacrifice to elect them and not to impoverish or destroy them.
Victor Onomo, Senator Itainag, I'm proud of you as an Akwa Ibomite. Now, if the urgency required by the INEC budget cannot move the Senate President to reconvene the Senate, then he is up to something. The 8th Senate is not working for the interest of this country, because if the urgency required cannot compel them to sit, then the National Assembly is selfish.
Now, Chris Anyarum says it is not correct to attribute to the National Assembly the inefficiency of government. Why did it take the government this long to present the budget for the security agencies now, knowing that election is next year?
This is from Change to Progress. It says National Assembly leaders, unfortunately, all from PDP from the beginning, have become a cog in the wheel of progress with their belligerent attitude. Now, the apprehension of leadership change is self-serving and not in the interest of the public. If you have majority, you don't need to be afraid.
And Melody Yusuf says it's unfortunate that the 8th Assembly is trying to push Nigerians to the wall. The leadership of the National Assembly should listen to the voices out there and act more rationally. They shouldn't forget that ultimate power lies with the people.
And this is coming from Baba Idris. Ask yourself why the executive did not present the INEC budget in January. Why now?
And Mustafa Migawa says the most honorable thing to do is the Senate President should resign and reconvene the Senate and consider the INEC budget.
Amobalahan has this tweet. Now, this is the very reason I remain an advocate of a unicameral legislature. With what is currently happening, it appears the ambition of one man is over and more important than millions of Nigerians. It's, however, sad that the majority still blames the president for the impasse.
And Victor Ohiesioma says the National Assembly should reconvene to consider the critical matters in the national interest. Party politics should be put aside. The question is, why was INEC's budget not included in the 2018 budget?
All right, those are the set of twists we will take in the meantime. One matter that we cannot run away from is one that, of course, has been in the air. Senator Ajegbo has captured it in his own words. Others have also referred to it and countered what he has said. They called for the Senate president to step down. Let me put the question this way. Will the, if you like, the overthrow, or the impeachment or removal of the leadership, current leadership of the National Assembly necessarily create a conducive atmosphere for the members of the National Assembly going forward to continue to conduct their business, bearing in mind the likely injection of musical chairs? Senator Itainak.
Yeah, my job as liaison officer is to work with the Senate, and the job of choosing or sustaining the leader or president of the Senate or speaker is that of the members represented on the floor. And what is happening now is a contestation between the members of the majority APC and the minority PDP. So it is not a contestation which members of the public have a direct influence except advocacy. Therefore, it will not be appropriate for me to get into this discussion. But let me add a few things. One, that the question of the budget is not a question of the Senate alone. It is that of the National Assembly. And the National Assembly is made of the Senate and the House. So if the House of Representatives, which is not having any challenge now, it is not having any contestation, the Speaker is not having any pressure, convenes and takes a look at this, then it may be easier for the Senate to find an ingenious ways of concurring with it, and they go on. Then members of the public and those who've tweeted have also raised the question that why were they not planning? And Senator Ajegbo, my friend, first said that he has a little bit of some reverence. I mean, he differs with me on some of my presentation, but in the end, he goes on agreeing. I did not say that you can suspend the Constitution. I said you can suspend the rules, the standing orders. Now, if on that question of planning, the budget was presented in November. The understanding was that it was going to be passed in December. The agreement we had. In fact, okay, I have never used the word agreement. I've always said understanding. But understanding to the extent that it almost crystallized into agreement was that this budget would be passed in December. And when it is passed in December, by the time and it is implemented, in the course of it, all will be accommodated. But when it did not come, and we knew that INEC budget would have been contained in the presentation of the budget, which would have been in September, October of this year, it would have been included there. If you see the presentation of Mr. President, it presents 2018, 2019. So INEC budget, which is to be spent in 2019, ought to be approved now. That is what the President has done. And all these other matters, they were there. But we thought in January it will be approved, in February it will be approved, in March it will be approved, because we kept having these assurances. So it's not a question of failure of planning. It was inability to keep the understanding that we had. Let me also finally say that on this point that, yes, the National Assembly is having pressure from the public. The National Assembly understands that it keeps the what I would call the lifeline of the nation. And it should listen to this pressure from the public. I agree they have challenges. And let me help not say that this what they're doing is personal. I shouldn't join it, but they also have a right to preserve, because only the living can praise the Lord. They are responsive, and they will be responsive. But they're taking every step to respond.
All right, Senator Ita, thank you very much. Very quickly, let's return to Lagos. Senator Mike Ajebo, I want to repeat the question I posed to Senator Ita, which he said, listen, considering his position, it's not he cannot, speak so fully to that issue. Namely this. Now, if the demand is that, look, Saraki must go, and any which way Saraki gets to be removed, will that necessarily create a conducive atmosphere for the National Assembly to function? I mean, if depending on how it's removed, will that necessarily, wouldn't you at some point in time need again the concurrence of other members of that chamber, or indeed of the other chamber to get going? If there's so much bad blood now, what happens going forward, even if the leadership is changed?
The problem is we are mixing up two major issues. One is the impeachment threat. Then the other one is the issue of the environment and supplementary budget. Please, for goodness sake, we should not mix the two. The issue of impeachment threat destabilizes the National Assembly. I will plead with leadership of APC to please sheet their salt. Let's sort out the issue of the budget first before they start worrying about the issue of impeachment. Because as at now, from what we read in the papers and what we see, they don't have the numbers. But the most important thing is the assumption we are making that the National Assembly will pass this budget. Why is it normally sent to the National Assembly? By Section 81, the President should send this document to the National Assembly. Why is the National Assembly to approve it? Is it not for them to look at it, agree or disagree? Assuming they don't agree at the end of the day, what happens? These are some of the issues we must take into consideration. We just shouldn't assume that it is not supposed to be a rubber stamp National Assembly. We should not just go and assume that, okay, the President has given them, they have to come back and pass it and give it back to Mr. President. It doesn't work like that. And we need to educate Nigerians about this issue. In the House alone, we have 360 members representing 360 constituencies in Nigeria. We have 3 senators per state. They are representing human beings. And these human beings have likes and dislikes. They may or may not like what is happening. They have to represent them. So please, that's why I'm begging that we should stay down on the issue of the impeachment threat. Let's focus on the issue of the supplementary budget environment, which requires the concurrence of the majority of members of the National Assembly. Because if we continue this way and they go back, what of if they say we are not passing this supplementary appropriation bill? What happens then? We are back to square one. So let us not assume. Let us shoot ourselves, get these issues solved, then before they continue worrying. That's my view on this issue. Because if you continue with this impeachment threat, you will never have peace in the National Assembly. I was there 1999 to 2003. Whenever you bring up the impeachment threat, it destabilizes the Senate. It also happened in the House. It destabilized the House. So please, let us get this issue out of the way and focus on the important one.
Thank you very much, Senator. We'll go to Prof in Kaduna. Prof, briefly, we should pause the impeachment threat so that we can move on. Let's have your thought on that.
Well, it's not about a threat. I think it's a matter of constitutional responsibility for the leadership of the National Assembly to reconvene immediately and take a look at this national emergency. That's one, and that's necessary, and that has to be done. Secondly, I'm also of the view that the leadership of the Senate or the President of the Senate should resign immediately. It's a matter of honor and integrity. So many reasons abound. The Nigerian Senate has never been as childish as it is today. We used to see crisis infighting within the chamber of the House of Representatives. That has not happened in the last 3.5 years. The senators are now exchanging blows. Unfortunately, we hear very terrible things coming from, the Senate, a Senate of the Federal Republic that is supposed to be a regulator, a moderator. It's simply a chamber that is supposed to appease, to make sure that there is a representation, to assuage the feelings of the smaller units within the Nigerian Federation. We appreciate when the House of Representatives, because of its nature of, population, young, vibrant, exuberant people, we appreciate when they quarrel. But we have not seen that in the last 3.5 years in the House. We have seen it several times in the Senate. So the Senate has successfully taken over. And what is that? A function of leadership, coupled with the fact that you don't occupy a position that does not belong to the. Yes, the Senate has the powers of, if it desires, if the members so desire, to elect somebody from a very minority party to be its president. That is agreed. But the case of the Senate president today stems from the fact that he contested, even though against the interests of his party, being a member of the majority party. And he is discontented with the way, the manner the party is run. The honorable thing for him to do, like I said, is to simply and quietly resign from the Senate presidency. That wouldn't change anything. In fact, in my view, it will stabilize the Senate. Throughout this republic, we have never seen a time when a Senate president or a speaker was impeached. The Senate presidents, the 5 of them that were removed by the government of Obasanjo, were forced to resign by the virtue of the crisis and heat that they had in the chambers. So that's also the way, in my view, an honorable way that Senator Bukola Saraki should follow, should take it, and he will remain relevant politically. Clinging to the position of Senate President, in my view, will continue to heat up the polity, and at the end of the day, the National Assembly will be certainly in the very bad books, records of the Nigerian people. And everything we do is recorded. You might not realize the implication of your action today. Obviously, it is recorded, and it is going to be represented long probably after we are not living. So I think the way to go now to resolve the impasse is, well, I don't agree it is impasse. To resolve the confusion is for the Senate to reconvene immediately, the House of Representatives to reconvene, whatever committees to look at this, proposals of the president. And like Senator Ajebo said, it is at the discretion of the legislature to agree and to disagree. But it's only when they disagree that they give the executives the opportunity, to revisit or review some of these areas of contentions and disagreement. But if this document and proposal is not looked at, it's unfortunate.
Professor Kabir Mato, thanks a lot. Very quickly from Prince Martins. Senator Ajegbo says it's important to at least strategically segregate the issue of Saraki, stepping down as Senate President versus considering the request for environment and a supplementary appropriation. Professor Mato, of course, you just listened to him, says, no, let the Senate President go. And I pose the question to you. If the Senate President is removed any which way, will the National Assembly, in particular the Senate, have the presence of mind to continue handling its business of lawmaking and oversight?
I think in the first place, if I were the Senate President, on my honor, I would have resigned by now.
But you are not.
Unfortunately, I'm not. Maybe that's why the Senate is where they are today. In the first place, what is wrong in impeaching the President of the Senate? I mean, why should these people take this thing personal? It's not, this thing shouldn't be all about the Senate President. It should be all about the country. Before now, I mean, during the previous government, Senate President have been, removed. It never affected the budget or anything. So we shouldn't blackmail using the budget issue to blackmail the removal of the Senate President. But I think that removing the Senate President, believe you me, or the Senate President resigning, will really bring peace, will stabilize the polity. Because the reason why we're having this is that some few people are bent on protecting the Senate President, his personal interest, as against the interest of the country as a whole. And the moment this Senate President leaves, you see that it's going to be peace. And the Senate will move forward and things will begin to work. But because The whole issue is more personal. It's more personal. It's about ego. It's about, I mean, no matter what, it's either I destroy the whole thing or I remain here. So if it is like that, then are they really serving the people that elected them there? Because that was not why we asked them to be there. This is the issue.
Thank you, Prince. We're running out of time.
Thank you very much. I want to say that I agree with Senator Ajebo, and that the National Assembly does not just have to pass. That is why in my words, in my presentations to the National Assembly, I have been appealing to them to convene. I've been appealing to them not to pass, stick to set, but to consider. That is why we lay before the legislature. Because if we get too much pressure on them and we do it the wrong way, they may reconvene and reject. They have considered it. So I want to be very temperate. The executive has been very, very reserved in their words with them. So we're appealing to come in and consider and pass as they think fit.
All right. Senator Itai, Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters. Senate, thanks a lot for your contributions to our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank
And Prince Bonoluwa Martins, Political Affairs Analyst, thanks a lot for being around today. And Professor Kabir Bato, Political Scientist and Analyst, joining us from our Kaduna Network Center. Thanks a lot for being around today. And also, distinguished Senator Mike Ajebo, thanks a lot for your contributions. And we do hope that there will be a follow-through on the proposal you made with regard to who should or who can intercede. We do hope that we can have a council of elders, maybe veteran lawmakers, senior citizens, who can intercede in the lingering impasse. Senator Mike Ajebo, thanks a lot from our Lagos Network studios.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's go over now to our complimentary segments. And here is sports with stories on tennis and soccer.